I think that what has happened is particularly serious, not only because of the number of victims that it caused, but because of the indications that exist that this was triggered, I would say, in advance of the normal way to trigger these things, because there was a risk of this being discovered. Because obviously the logic of making all these devices explode is to do it as a preemptive strike before a major military operation. So as important as the event in itself is the indication that this event confirms that there is a serious risk of a dramatic escalation in Lebanon, and everything must be done to avoid that escalation.
You just mentioned the danger of this explosion. Let me get to the other way. This is, they use civilian devices to do this attack. Would this be a very dangerous precedent for the future war, that using civilian device to have this kind of large-scale explosions? And may I ask, is there anything to do with all these things with the releasing of hostages in Gaza? Thank you.
Indeed, I think it's very important that there is an effective control of civilian objects, not to weaponize civilian objects. That should be a rule that everywhere in the world governments should be able to implement. The link of what's happening in Lebanon with what's happening in Gaza is obvious since the beginning. I mean, the Hezbollah has been very clear in saying that it has launched its operations because of what's happening in Gaza, and that it will stop when there will be a ceasefire in Gaza.
And with exploding pagers in Lebanon and Syria yesterday, how worried are you that instead we may be heading toward World War III?
I think we are perfectly on time to avoid to move into World War III. What we are witnessing is a multiplication of conflicts and a sense of impunity. And the sense of impunity that is not in the relations among the big powers, where the risks of world war are bigger, it's a sense of impunity everywhere. I mean, any country or any military entity, militias, whatever, feel that they can do whatever they want because nothing will happen to them.
Regarding the explosion of the devices, are you concerned that the communication devices that UN workers are using could be potentially programmed to explode, like what we have seen, we're seeing in Lebanon?
We don't use those devices, and this time it's important to say that there is no member of the UN that had any of the device that exploded. That is very clear.
As you know, more than 41,000 Palestinians, the majority of whom are civilians, were killed in Gaza. And still weapons are being delivered to Israel. So my question to you, do you believe that there should be a weapon halt on delivery to Israel or weapon embargo? And what is your message to the Palestinians in general and the Palestinians in Gaza who feel that the world left them alone?
Well, I have no illusions about the possibility of what you are requesting. Knowing the world as it is today and knowing the decisions taken by the powers that are relevant, I have no illusions that that would be possible. That makes the situation be what it is. And obviously, there is something that needs to be underlined once more, is that the level of death and destruction that we witness in Gaza is by far the largest that I've ever seen when in my mandate as Secretary General, and that the violations of international humanitarian law are totally unacceptable. I condemned, as I did, and I feel that that condemnation was essential, the terror attacks by Hamas, but what's happening today in Gaza is totally unacceptable, and I follow with a lot of interest the work of the international courts in this regard.
Just a quick follow-up. You say you have no illusion, but you have a moral authority and a position on the issue of weapon delivery. So do you support it? Do you think it would be beneficial to stop the war immediately?
I think that that will not happen, and I'm more concentrated on the things in which I believe we can make a change in the immediate. Thank you very much.
Mr. Secretary General, there was another set of explosions in Lebanon.
On what devices?
Talking about walkie-talkies.